Moving over to the news we discussed at the start of the show, the European Court of Justice has ruled against FIFA and UEFA in their case against the proposed European Super League. The court stated that rules requiring prior approval before establishing a new competition were unlawful. Real Madrid and Barcelona remain the leading proponents of the proposed Super League, while multiple European giants have already responded to the new ruling by stating they will have not part in the proposed Super League. Manchester United is one of the teams to release a statement saying, and quote, "We remain fully committed to participation in UEFA competitions." We have more on this developing story. Back to you, Ali, with this hot topic.
Thank you, Adriana. We now welcome in Geoff Shreeves, who is joining us to break down this developing story. And Geoff, I just first want to start by getting your reaction to what we've learned as of late with what the latest is.
Good morning, folks. I think, first of all, you've got to actually look at what this judgment from the European Court of Justice, which is, of course, the EU's most senior court, actually means, because it's very important you focus on the decision that's been made today. What it is saying is that UEFA and FIFA acted unlawfully in European law, and it said by not allowing clubs to join the Super League or a breakaway league or even discuss it, they were violating the anti-competitive European laws. Now, straight after that, and that's the core of the judgment. Now, straight after that, the two remaining clubs, Barcelona and Real Madrid, of course, they've claimed great victory. You know, this is the way forwards. This is an historic day for football. There'll be a new competition formed. But on the other side of things, the clubs that want to stay and those who are anti the new A22 proposal, which of course is the new Super League, have said, look, it doesn't in any way, shape or form endorse any other proposal as well. And also, if you look carefully, it would require the sporting bodies to allow their clubs to talk to other competitions, but the clubs are not going to do that because they already have restrictions in place in terms of the league's rules, and also the government, in terms of the Premier League, have put restrictions in place about clubs signing up to this type of thing. So I'm not entirely convinced it actually moves things a great deal forward. I'm not sure how far the needle has actually moved on this, because straight away, you just read the Manchester United statement there. It's all very well saying, OK, the law at that time was, it fell foul of the competitive nature, if you like, the anti-competitive laws that exist in the EU. But that, not for 1 second, does it mean that the clubs are going to sign up for this. Because don't forget, football ultimately is owned by the fans. They don't want it. Super League lasted less than 48 hours. Players don't want it. Managers don't want it. Coaches don't want it. I really can't see this changing much at all. And as I said, the two biggest proponents, Barcelona and Real Madrid, La Liga, their own league, have come out and said, we do not endorse this. We remain fully committed to both UEFA and FIFA competitions. Look, you don't have to see the pictures there of the protests. Such was the depth of feeling at the time. It really struck right at the heart of what football means to the people of this country. And it's not just a legal contract, it's an emotional contract with the fans. And not for 1 second would they entertain it. I was at Old Trafford on that day when the fans broke in. We were broadcasting live, and they made their feelings known very, very clearly. So I think you've got to look at what has been said today, but then ask yourself the question, OK, it maybe leaves the door open once again for the Super League or A22 to come back. But in that intervening period, I think the clubs and the leagues and the fans, if you like, they've steeled themselves to be even more resistant.
Geoff, I'm glad that you bring up actually Manchester United, funny enough. How surprised are you how quick they were to release a statement, and how much, this is just my opinion, do you think this is a bit of a PR stunt by Manchester United to get the fans on their side, to detract all the other stuff that's going on at the club with how poorly they're being run and how poorly they're doing, to make it seem like they're a club now that belongs to the fans and it's all about the fans?
Oh, you cynic, Nigel. How could you say such a thing? That's terrible. What an accusation to make. That possibly is at the back of the mind. To be honest with you, Nigel, I think at the forefront of their mind is the last time they announced their participation, it really did go down like a cup of cold sick, as the old saying goes. So I think they are quick to, if you like, underline their commitment to the existing competition and their participation. They're looking to distance themselves immediately. And this is the self-styled biggest club in the world. So if they're saying, we want no part of this right now whatsoever, then that's a huge statement. A huge statement. Honestly, unless we all saw the headlines around the world, but unless you were here, it's difficult for me to convey to you the depth of feeling that existed when the Super League came out. Honestly, it came and went so quickly, and such was the reaction of horror, the protests against it. I think the clubs are smart enough to know if there's even a whiff of any Premier League club entertaining this idea, they will be in serious trouble with their fans. And as I said, plus the league itself, plus the government.
Geoff, for those of us who obviously weren't in England at the time, is the sentiment around when the Premier League broke off from the top flight and made its own league, was the sentiment at that time similar to what we're seeing now, or was that met with a bit more, I guess, confidence or hope?
No, to be honest with you, Lex, it's a good question. But what I would say is the fans are looking at the competition. The fans of this country, I just heard you talking just now to my good friend Guillaume, talking about will games be played in the States ever. What the fans here, they want to watch their club week in, week out. There's hardcore away fans, and there's also obviously huge grounds full of home fans every single week. They want to go and watch their team. It's as simple as that. When the Premier League was a breakaway, that didn't change that. The only thing that really changed was the television, and there were more games on television, which at the time, there were so few games being shown, was seen as a massive, massive bonus for all football fans. They could see more football. I mean, this really isn't to replace the Premier League, this A22 idea. This is about replacing the Champions League in its existing format. In truth, that's what it's all about. But the clubs want no part of it, because I think also as well, the fans in particular, would see this as the thin end of the wedge. So I can't see it flying. I really can't. But as we know, money talks in all sport, and that includes football. So you can never say never, but right now it looks a long, long way from going any further.
So, Guillaume, you don't want to be invited to my suite for the North London Derby in Las Vegas? Is that what you're saying?
Did you just call me Guillaume?
I'm sorry.
He did, Jeff. He did.
You said Guillaume.
Disrespectful.
So he went from Shreff to Guillaume. Okay.
Wow.
Sorry. I gave you a little spice.
So
ruined the joke, I'd say. Okay, Charlie.
Jeff.
Yeah, look.
Hypothetically,
Yeah,
let's say this league ends up coming together. No English teams are involved, but it starts to flourish. Teams are making a lot of money. The ownership groups, some of them are obviously foreign. They're like, hey, it's time for us to start getting involved. How would that happen? What would that look like for English teams to move away from Champions League, from the UEFA competitions, and move into the Super League? What would it take, and what would that look like?
I think that it's almost impossible to theorise, Charlie, because it's so far away from potentially happening. Now, I'm not saying never, never, never. That's always a very foolish thing to do. But you think that, so La Liga have said, no way, Jose. Germany have come out and said, not remotely interested. England, the Premier League, have made their position very, very clear. So I think it'd be very hard for the A22 to get any sort of foothold amongst European clubs. But we cannot ignore that the Premier League takes the majority, the lion's share of the finances, and its product, when it's sold around the world, is the most valuable commodity in club football right now. So I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, people are not going to give up those positions lightly. Germany's interesting as well, because they say it's not just about the money, it's about the social contracts that they have with their fans. And of course, they have their club ownership model as well. So I think we're so far away from clubs being tempted to even get involved in a conversation about this. It's not realistic to discuss it. But at the same time, I think it is important to note that the owners of Premier League clubs, who got it horribly wrong last time, they are now a lot of foreigners, a lot of American owners as well. And if the Middle Eastern leagues, you've only got to look at the Saudi league as well. If they start to dominate with players and competition, and there is then a change in the balance of power, then maybe the conversation would change then. But I think you're talking years before that conversation would happen. But we can't ignore either as well. The world is moving on. It is changing the way people view things, the content they want, how they view it, through what medium, and they want access. Fans want to join in from all around the world. So I think if anything, you would hope that the fans would benefit somehow by clubs upping their game in this country and others in order to see off the challenge.
Geoff, just the last one for me quickly. I need you to give my American colleagues a bit more insight to understand how heavily involved the British government is going to be in this process, because obviously wanting to keep these big historic English club within English competition and not to kill the domestic league. Can you just give us a bit more deeper insight at how much football means to English fans and the government's involvement?
Well, as you know, Nigel, there's the bill at the moment. There's the talk of the football regulator coming in. And the government put in place restrictions in the new football governance bill as well, because when Super League was announced, it was basically, there was a groundswell of opinion that you can't trust the clubs. And therefore, the government had to step in and get involved, which is why if the new football governance bill goes through fully as to what they want, we will have a regulator in place, and that will prevent exactly this type of thing from happening once again. So the government fully appreciates what football in this country does in terms of being part of the fabric of society, and also not just the top echelons of football, but how they feed the pyramid down as well, right the way down to the amateur game. Everybody benefits from the current ecosystem, and that's what the government is looking to protect as well. So that stops, if you like, the club's personal desire for more money taking precedent over the people of this country in terms of what happens with their football club. And also as well, Nigel, it all started with Bury going bust. Don't forget this, bizarrely, it started with Bury going bust and the question of, as we put it, financially irresponsible owners, or perceived as such, to stop that from happening as well. So it's top and bottom. They're looking to protect the public or the fans from losing their beloved football clubs. So it should ideally have a benefit at both ends of the scale.
Got to think about the tax money, right? So how much money football provides England.
Yeah.
There's no way the government's not going to intervene.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Also, you votes is how you stay in. You want to upset everyone, say you're for this. You want everyone to vote for you, say you're against it.
Geoff.
Guys,
Yeah.
can I just, before I go, can I just give you the most important news of today by a long, long way?
Yes.
Give it to me.
Tom Lockyer, the Luton Town captain, has just been released from hospital and he's now back home with his family.
Oh.
He's had a procedure, but he's now back home with his family.
That's
That's
excellent
amazing.
news. It's
That is
terrifying when he went into cardiac arrest just the other week. So great news ahead of the holidays. Geoff, enjoy yours, and thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks, folks. See you again.
Thanks, Guillaume.
All right, the big news today, the European Court of Justice have ruled that UEFA and FIFA acted against competition law when they blocked the formation of the European Super League back in 2021.